Good morning, guys. Excited to be here. As Donovan said, I am an SVP lifer. I think I joined SVP when I was about 24. Joined SVP, then was a partner, was a board member, was a staff member, now back as a partner, now back as a board member. So I can never leave SVP. If you ever want a testimonial about if people aren't partners, want to join, come talk to me. I'll let you know why it's great. So we're going to spend actually probably about 20 minutes together because there's a surprise between me and the next speaker. So I'll try to get through this. I really would like, if we could, there might be some things where I just ask audience members to raise your hand, blurt out things, ask some reactions. And so I want to try to make this as engaging as we possibly can. So if you read my bio, Sentari Minor, I talk about being most passionate about bringing the best out of individuals and entities. So one of the things that I'm actually most passionate about in addition to that is helping underserved entrepreneurs. We'll talk about my career and my journey there, but a through line has been looking at communities, looking at founders, looking at their ventures and seeing, wow, you can make a tremendous impact, but you probably aren't going to be able to do that because you just don't have the access or the advocacy. So that's something I like to spend my time doing, especially around conversations like this. So that's me, Power Pose. Very, very, very excited to have a conversation about this. About a year ago, I penned an article that was published on Medium about this exact conversation. I'd been in a lot of conversations coming out of, during COVID and coming out of COVID about there was that kind of, there was a thing that happened in 2020 where people were like, shoot, we have to figure out what to do with people of color. We have to invest. We have to do something. And so I got pulled into a lot of conversations. And I was like, after all these conversations, I just need to put everything out of my head and put it on paper. And so I wrote this piece, which is mostly about stuff that you all already know. We've talked about it for the last 2 days. But essentially the thesis is minority founders, female founders have really great ideas, but they're not being funded. They have really good things that they can offer the world, but people just aren't recognizing it. And so this talks about how do you then develop and serve them in a way that's meaningful, but also culturally appropriate. And so I can send out the link after this, but this was kind of the impetus of this call or about this talk. So I'm super excited to share that. So as I talk today, I want to root the conversation in two things: economic impact of minoritized founders, and then also economic mobility. So we'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that. So looking at this slide, you'll see that diverse entrepreneurs led or owned 18% of all businesses nationwide. So 1 in 5 businesses that you shop at, that you get value from, that you have products that you love, are owned by someone that looks like me. So that's significant impact to our economy, just putting that one out there. And also, when I think about how do you create wealth in the country, entrepreneurship is a centerpiece of that. So it can be a catalyst for economic mobility, and we know that to be true. In a previous job, right before this, with a company that Tony feels like is a competitor to SVP, I don't think it is. A company where I got to work with purposeful CEOs, owners, and entrepreneurs all over the country, but mostly spent my time in Phoenix, Dallas, and San Francisco. We talked a lot about economic opportunity, and that's how do you move people up. And a big centerpiece of that is entrepreneurship and ownership. So if we know that you have minoritized founders that can do great work, have great ventures, and that it leads to economic impact, then why is it so hard for these folks to get funded? And there's something on this that's just really fascinating, is that when people that look like me can't get funding, they have to dip in their own pockets and go to friends and family, which prevents them from the economic mobility piece. So as we go through this, just keep thinking about the impact that these founders are making, but also what we're keeping them from doing by the things that the frameworks that are currently in place. So, what we know to be true. So going through this, I just want to hopefully assume that everyone agrees with these statements. And if someone doesn't, then we should probably talk later. But what we know to be true, and we'll talk about this in subsequent slides, is Black, brown, and female founders drive a significant economic impact. Raise your hand if you believe that. I would hope. Okay, good. We're on the same page. Diverse teams show better results. Agree. And underserved entrepreneurs do not have access to the resources and capital to help them succeed. There you go. Okay, I was not worried, but I'm glad we're good. We're good. That makes this a lot easier. So for the rest of the kind of 15 minutes, talk a little bit about me. give you a state of the state of underserved entrepreneurs. So there's some really cool stats that I'll show about just the actual impact that when I was kind of putting this presentation together a while back, I was like, wow, I was close to it, but did not know just the vast impact that these entrepreneurs are making. Defining the problem, I think we all know the problem, but I'll try to put it succinctly. Solutions for investors, so folks who are funders, what I think you should be doing, and then also the Aspen Institute with the research. That's stuff you should probably follow too, but what I think you should do. And then practical solutions for entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur or a venture founder in the room, what I think would be some really good solutions to find access to that capital. So a little bit about me, why I'm on stage. As I already told you about my journey with Social Venture Partners, which has been super, it's been such a foundational piece of my career, both personally and professionally. It's been a wonderful kind of proving ground on how do you build capacity within organizations, how do you bring in folks with means and capital to the individuals that might not have access to that. So that's been a big piece of what I do. I worked again with a company called Alder, so I worked with some CEOs around the country that you might know, and really teaching them and coaching them and advising on everything social good. So working with CEOs and having conversations about economic mobility, having conversations about education and national security, and really pushing them on their ideals and beliefs around what it looks like. So if you're in the perch of a Fortune 500 company, you're not really thinking about a lot of these things, but the company that I work for made them think about it, and it was really great to be in those rooms, in those spaces, and have those conversations. From that, one of the CEOs in that company, or in that group, was the CEO of my current company, evolvedMD, where I was the first non-clinical employee. So I oversee strategy for one of the fastest growing behavioral health companies in the country. And then a Seed Spot. Has anyone heard of Seed Spot? It's a internationally ranked accelerator based in Phoenix. Does work exclusively with communities of color around building their social impact ventures. And so I sit on that board and get to serve as a venture mentor. And so through all of this work, one thing that's become abundantly clear is that success for me has been because I had access to very right, or not, and by right I mean white spaces. So I did a talk maybe 2 or 3 years ago for this Black storytellers group called The Whole Story, and I talked about being in typically white spaces. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, very white city. Went to the right high school, went to the right college, and so I've always just had access to the folks and the advocates that could advocate for me and whatever's doing, and also access to that capital. And that's been so instrumental to my success, and that's exactly what these entrepreneurs need. And so I'm really excited to kind of talk about the through line from my life to these entrepreneurs. So state of the state. I'll just read some of these things to you because I did not know. So 63%, so startups with female founders outperform those by 63%. That's a crazy stat to me. Anyone knew that one? No. So thinking about acquisitions and IPOs, diverse founding teams have a 3.3 return, white founding teams 2.5. Diverse founding teams actually perform better on these acquisitions and IPOs. Companies with above average management team diversity reported innovation revenue of 45% as opposed to 26% by their white counterparts. And then as far as racial and ethnic diversity, and then women, companies in the top 25% for ethnic diversity are likely to have superior financial returns by 36%, and female 25%. So when going back to, let's see, is it on this slide? What we know to be true, diverse teams show better results. That is, the data shows that, we know that, but it's still, there is a disconnect. So I'm gonna ask, and I also just, this actually came out, 2 weeks ago, which is when companies hire Black CEOs, their stock jumps. So people value this, but yet it's not getting invested in. And I think one of the big takeaways I want for this room is to know, if you're a funder in this room, know that like funding a diverse team will actually provide better results for you. And then I'll talk a little bit later about just taking the big risk on that. I know Tony hates Q&A, so I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to ask someone to tell me like what's the most shocking or the most shocking stat on this one, or something that you just didn't know. Anyone? I'll just call on you. Go. The first one, yeah, about female founders. Yeah, that's a hard one. Anything else that people want to call out on this slide? I'll move on. Okay, I'll just and I think they'll give you the slide deck, so you don't have to like hurry up and write this thing. We'll get this to you so you can have the notes later. So even Amazon gets it. So did you guys see this? Amazon released a fund, $150 million venture fund specifically for underserved entrepreneurs. It's the first of its kind. Did anyone else see this press release come out? Okay, it's really really cool and innovative. They big dollars because they know the potential of these founders, right? And they also understand that there's just not enough capital out there for people that look like me. And so now I want to get into kind of the problem that we all know, but with some stats that were pretty harrowing to me. The problem is access to both social and financial capital. So if you look at the middle graph, you'll see the percent of business owners that do not think they will ever have equal access to capital. The highest percentage is, of course, Black, women, Hispanic, Latino. The pieces of 93% of Black and Latino entrepreneurs worried that the recent success is driven by short-term boost in attention. So 2020, everyone got a lot of recognition and notoriety, and then things kind of fell through. So a big push for the funders in the room is going to be, when you start investing, it's going to be a long game, not just something you put on a press release. Don't make it perfunctory, make it very real. And then something that you all know is 75% of executives pick proteges who look just like them. And this panel was talking about bringing a chair and then inviting someone to sit in that chair. We're currently raising our Series B, and so I get to be on calls with me and my CEO, tag team them, and every venture person went to the same 5 schools. I can every time I'm like, you went to Harvard, you went to Bowdoin, you went to Stanford. Yeah, got it, everyone. I'm typically the only person of color on the Zoom screen. And it's unfortunate. It's understandable to some degree, but it's unfortunate because even in the VC world, you're like, I wish there was someone across the screen that had access to this capital that was giving out that looks like me, but it just doesn't. And it's why, because people hire the people that look like them, and that continues to go on, and it continues to happen. And I see it every day. We're pitching 4 times a week, and every day I can tell you the story before someone comes on, and that's I think that's pretty unfortunate. Then, and companies regarded as the top 40 of the best venture capital bets of all time, 100% were male founders, and 80% of those were white men from America. So, what is that? Just looking at the slide, what does that tell you? Anyone? give me something. Things are pretty limited for it's even though we know that diverse teams are more impactful. Even though that we know that there are better returns, they're still not getting the dollars or the recognition or the notoriety, and it's going to the same people who look like the same people that I just described. Which is, I know that we all know that, but seeing it in these numbers was really surprising to me, and it's something that I think that there's, as Amazon showed, there's a public goodwill and public push to change this, but still there's a lot of work to be done. So stories from the scene. So I get to work with a number of incubators and accelerators around the country, SeedSpot being one of them. So worked with, and I just want to tell you a couple of stories about 2 Black women that I've worked with as a mentor and venture coach. So Nicola Brown, who's the CEO of Kokoro, who's doing amazing things in the digital behavioral health world, needed to find a way to build capacity within her organization. She's a therapist by trade, super smart, but did not have the business acumen and business savvy, and could not find the right advocates to help her. So I went in and helped kind of figure out what does it look like to grow and scale your business. Who are the big thing? Who are the right people that you should be talking to? So the connection and advocacy, and also connecting her with some VCs that I knew. And so being able for her to be able to have that advocacy has catapulted the venture so much, and it's really really cool to see that something like SeedSpot really helps entrepreneurs do that. So if you are an entrepreneur in the room that wants to kind of better build their business, SeedSpot's a great program to go through. And then Local First Arizona, I sit on one of their boards, and I also work with their accelerator program. So the story I'd like to tell you from there is Avilia Davis. So she runs a group called the Diaspora Collective, and she's an interesting case study because she's a former VP of PetSmart. So she's VP, MBA. She's great, but also had no idea how to start a business. And so she went out to quit her corporate job at PetSmart, and started this thing called the Diaspora Collective, which is really getting Black people more connected to their roots in Africa. And again, the same story. She has a proven track record in business, great success in the community, could not get any banking. could not have access to capital, and she's just hitting her head against the wall over and over again. We finally found that because we have some great banking partners in Arizona that look like me, who went out on a limb and said, "Hey, we're going to do it. We're going to take the bet. We're going to take the risk," and it's been great. So that's just to show the power of advocacy and the power of connection and helping these entrepreneurs. A lot on this, so I will go through a couple of these, but this is from the Aspen Institute, and they talk about how can investors do better by people of color and female founders. There's some fun ones in there that I'll point out, which is VC firms can move away from happy hours and towards informational events that do not emphasize alcohol consumption. When I was doing work in San Francisco, you'd be like that. This is how it works. You're just at a happy hour with folks, and you're mixing and mingling, and that's how deals are done. And so for a lot of people of color, they don't have access to those rooms or don't even know how to work those rooms. And so moving away from those type of environments and events. And I think the one that was really great was VC firms should investigate whether there are biases implicit in their ROI measures. And I know we talk a lot about that, but when people come to, there's so much research on when people see ventures that are backed by Black or brown funders, they say, how is this going to work? Like, is this going to work? Are you sure it's going to work? Or they would not do that to their white male counterparts. And so this is a push for that. A lot on this sheet, a lot on this page. We'll get you the deck, but just wanted to point that out. And Aspen does a lot of really good work around this and are at the forefront of this kind of communication. What I think it looks like practically is seeking out ventures with founders that don't look like you. So if you're an investor in the room, be uncomfortable and go out and seek folks that you normally wouldn't be at a table with, that you normally wouldn't be in a room with, and have a conversation and kind of take a bet on their success. I think providing true mentorship to those in underrepresented communities. So really sitting down, sitting next to them and saying, hey, this is how you work that room. Well, one, I'm going to invite you to that room. This is how you work that room. And also I'm going to stand next to you while we're in the room to be your biggest champion and advocate is something that can go really, really far. Providing education on the investor process and assigned an advocate. I don't know if any of you guys has anyone raised their Series A or Series B in here? I just did our Series A, now in our Series B. Until you do it, you have no idea what you're doing. We just kind of stumbled through the Series A, right? And it was, we got through it, but it's also because we had a lot of really good advocates and everything to kind of walk us through the process. But unless you know, you just don't know. And so it's very, very hard for people of underrepresented entrepreneurs to actually get through that process. So providing the education on the front end of saying, like, this is what it's going to look like. This is what you should say. Rethinking criteria for investment and lending. We have already talked about that and talked about that over the last couple of days. Taking real bets. The VC world is built on things not going, like, unicorns happen and that's how VCs make their money, but for every unicorn, there's 40 that just didn't work out. Take a bet on a Black, brown, or female founder and say, it might not work, but we're gonna fund you because that's the way this should be. And then I think this is really important. Remembering the next generation values diversity in every aspect of their lives. So if you want to hire, if you want to retain, if you want to get the attention of, if you want them to be your customer, you better be investing in Black, brown, and female entrepreneurs because that's what that's what the next generation wants to see. And so gone are the days where it's going to be all white men because it just, I think people are savvy enough and also putting their dollars behind things that look exactly the opposite. So making this a play for you to be successful means you also have to invest in entrepreneurs of color. And then practical solutions for entrepreneurs. Understand and ask for what you need. So I think a big thing is that you have to be really thoughtful around who are the people that you want to meet and then make sure that you can meet them. So go into your networks, find folks on LinkedIn, ask me if you want to. If like, hey, I want to know that person and I need them for X, Y, Z, that'll go very far. And I talk a lot about that in the article. Leverage your networks and find advocates. Look into incubators and accelerators designed for underrepresented entrepreneurs. And then a big piece that I'll kind of close on, because you guys have a surprise, is focusing on mental health. So I live squarely in the mental health space, and the big thing that I've been doing is on a roadshow around the business case for mental health and showing that entrepreneurs as a specific subset have such a higher rate of depression, anxiety, and suicide because of just the inherent risk of the work that they're doing. So if you're an entrepreneur in the room, focus on your mental health. I laid out some 10 strategies on another Medium article, but one of the things that I think is really helpful for me is checking in with myself, doing a personal 1 to 10. how am I feeling today? If it's not a 10, what will get me to a 10? What do I need to do? And then also just leveraging your community. And so being vulnerable with the people around you and saying, like, it's not a good day, it's not going well, and having them help you and lead on you. Find me on LinkedIn. A lot of good content there. Find me on Instagram. There's a lot of food if you enjoy that. I think a big piece of what I wanted to leave you with was a lot of high-level things today, but looking at the importance of the economic impact of underserved entrepreneurs. They do a good job of getting jobs, creating product, creating value, and that's often overlooked. There's the economic mobility piece. If we really want to grow the next generation and really close that wealth gap, entrepreneurship has to be a linchpin piece of it. And the only way that's going to happen is that we have those investors that are willing to invest in Black, brown, female, and minoritized communities. And then finally, this really practical approaches, like the stuff that would be very, very like table stakes, very easy to do. Just do them. Like go meet people that don't look like you, invite them in, take on a mentee that you think needs the help. Rethink about how you're holding events and how you're showing up in certain spaces that cost you no money. Just do it. And I'll leave it at that. Cool.